Hi, Sandra Booker, Steve Christian from sunny Southern California. And just as promised, here with a little introductory drum lesson, I guess we'll call it, but more just some things that I've found and some things that my teachers shared with me. That those guys coming from years of experience. Billy Moore played with Ray Charles Band, and my guy Russ Tincher before that was a total technician. But regardless of what style you're playing, it all comes down to the same few basic principles when you're getting started. And the first thing that I'm going to stress in everything you do, and you've probably, I think you're a musician, singer, keyboard player, and it sounds like you also read music, which is a great head start, because reading rhythms is something that a lot of drummers struggle with when they're learning, and learning to read rhythms properly, to understand song form and all that just makes you a better musician. Billy Moore, my teacher who played with Ray Charles, used to say, there's three kind of people that sit down at a drum set. He says, first you got dummers. He said, then after a while, maybe they learn some things, they become a drummer. He said, but what you want to become is the third thing, which is a musician, and it sounds like you're already there. So you're going to bring that understanding and sensitivity of the instrument right off the bat, which is great and a huge advantage for you. Plus, you're going to find, I don't know how many instruments you play, but when I took up guitar and voice after many, many years of the drums, I found it made me a better drummer. Not only did the experience I'd had on the drums help me as a guitarist and a singer, but or the other way around. You get it. I don't need to backtrack on that. The one funny thing was, I remember that playing primarily jazz, there were only a few times when I really got with a singer that I just dug so much. Like, check out Leslie Lewis, who lives in Paris right now. She's in my friends group, and Leslie is just wonderful and a great artist, and some of the best gigs of my life were backing up Leslie. But I was always wary of singers for different reasons. As you know, a lot of singers just haven't put in the work when they get up and say they're going to be a singer, especially jazz, the most difficult music. But it's funny, then when I became a singer, I'm wary of drummers right now. Who is that guy back there? Why is he playing all those paradiddles underneath, what I'm trying to do? So I guess it goes both ways. Anyways, let's move on. First, most important thing, every time you address your instrument, and it's true of any instrument, any performance, you've got to relax. Even taking some deep breaths before you start to practice or perform just kind of helps get rid of everything else, all the other stuff that might be going through here. So relaxation is everything, and that comes from how your instrument is set up, and also how you're set up, so your posture. I'm on an office chair right now. Eventually you might want to get a drum throne. I have always liked having one with a little backrest that packs up nice and flat, just because sometimes on the gig you just want to lean back for a minute and get a little rest, and sometimes you'll use it actually in how you're dressing the instrument. Coming from relaxation is great. Sometimes you're going to come in with tension. You're going to tense up. Jack DeJohnette talked about this, that you can use tension then. But the guy who's tense, or the guy or gal who's tense at the drum set is operating at a disadvantage. And another thing I found, then I'll move off of relaxation, is that sometimes you go, okay, my shoulders are relaxed, and my legs are relaxed, but my toes are curled up. For some reason, they're curled up in my shoe, all tense. Or sometimes it's even in the face. Check out, and nowadays so great because you can check out all the videos. Check out Philly Joe Jones. If ever a person looked cooler sitting behind a drum set or more relaxed, I don't know. Now, he did use certain additives to help in his relaxation, but still, it came through in his playing how relaxed he was, and just how much it made the music swing. But you can look at any great drummer and you'll find that Art Blakey, that driving force, that freight train, was still very relaxed back there, and yet putting out all that energy. So it all comes from that. Anyways, that's that. I look like I'm already going on 5 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this, try not to babble on too much. So your posture, you always want to, even when you're practicing, if you can use an office chair that adjusts. What I like to do is get a slight downward angle from my top of my thigh to my knee. I see guys sitting the opposite way, and that doesn't make sense to me. Being this way, I've found is just the best way for me. I've seen some guys sit level, some guys sit low, high, even a higher angle. I don't think, usually just whatever makes sense, no extremes. And then, you know, your shoulders are going to be just hanging, okay, just relaxed. And same, from here on down, that's going to help this, and it's going to help these wrists too. And then I like to set, this is a practice pad, so these would be rim shots. And you're going to get to that, and this practice pad has a rim. All it is just a thin, it's like a, you can see, it's called a quiet tone drum unit. I don't even know if they're made anymore. But anything you're using right now, don't worry about that. It's just that eventually you're going to want to be able to hit rim shots. I'll show you another way to get a rim shot too, which is something you can do with the stick control book, which is kind of fun. Sticks. Sometimes people just say, oh, here's some drumsticks you can have. I don't know that I did a tremendous amount of research. The only thing is, and some drummers are so fussy about their equipment, it's just fun. These are just a little too fussy sometimes. But you can roll your sticks on a glass tabletop just to make sure when you're buying them that they're not bowed. I don't know, considering what you're doing with drumsticks, that makes that big a difference. But at least you've got some nice straight sticks. I think they're less likely to break or crack if they're diced straight. And the other thing is there's different tips. These are wood tip. These are boleros, and I've always compared this to like that big green pencil they give you in the first grade, when you're learning to write. But I've just found it gives me a little bit more control. But I don't know, if bigger hands or whatever. Truth be told, I saw Billy Higgins playing with these, and I thought, well, he's my drum hero, so I'm going to get some too. But there were other drummers who came along later and said, no, you can. It's easier to get your dynamics. It's easier to play quieter with a heavy stick. That seems to be different. But try a few different sticks and see what you like. Thinner, lighter. The difference in the weight between this stick and a much lighter one is measured in grams. It's nothing substantial. But guys are fussy and they say they can feel it. And when I say guys, I mean guys and gals. Let's see. And then there's a little bit different lengths and sticks, all that stuff. So you go to the music store and there's a rack of them, and some of them have signature. Oh, it's the Jack DeJohnette sticks. It's the Vinnie Colaiuta sticks or whatever. That's pretty much meaningless. Okay, it's gonna be a good fit for you, and then. I'm going to recommend that you use what's called a match grip. There's a lot of discussion about the traditional grip, and where this came from was military drummers. If we go back way before the drum set was invented, those drums would hang at an angle, and so you couldn't play it like this. The drum head was at this angle, and so that's where this came from. And of course, the cats who started to put the drum set together, coming out of like the parade bands in New Orleans, started tilting the snare drum, and you still see guys with it tilted this way, tilted this way, tilted this way. I've got maybe a slight tilt a little bit forward just to help with my rim shot, but there's no real reason with match grip that there needs to be any severe angles. There doesn't need any severe angles anywhere, not on cymbals or tom-toms or anything when you get to that. Remember, your hi-hat, all hi-hat stands are made, and they're flat. So you see a guy with a flat hi-hat, and then his snares like this, and his toms are like this, and his cymbals are unnecessary. I'm seeing more and more cats, especially like Eric Harlan. Everything's flat, like it's all on a tabletop for it. The cymbals, the toms, everything. And it makes so much sense. It's just right there for you. So, anyways, that's enough of that. Just your practice pad should be also the surface of the drum. I like it above my thighs. I see guys who have the drum below. I don't understand, because you want clearance. You can see I've got clearance here to hit that rim shot. So So if their thigh's in the way, it doesn't make sense. Then I see guys, Winard Harper's snare is way up high. He's a little guy, and if I could only drum like Winard, and Winard uses a lot of traditional grip, and so do I sometimes because I started that way, but starting out, especially because you're going to be wanting to get a nice even tone, it just makes it easier than having to go to get it this way, and to have your brain, you know, training this wrist to do this and this wrist to do that. There's stuff that happens here. Mel Lewis told me, he says it's easier for me to swing this way. Well, Mel grew up that way. Of course it is. I'll find in the middle of a song sometimes, and I've seen Jeff Watts do this, that I'll switch over for something different. Tony Williams played like this a lot, but he'd switch back and forth. There's another advantage swinging, and then you go into a Latin thing, and you're down here for the clave, and you can come up. But match grip, you can lay that down, and then you're right back up here. So start out with the matched. Later on, if you want to add this in for whatever reason, you probably won't need to. Okay, so we talked about sticks. We're talking about hands right now. Let's talk about holding the stick. And again, no tension here. Both of my teachers used the same metaphor, said compare it to if you were holding a bird in your hand. You're not trying to crush these things or relax your whole body and then have tension here in the sticks. And then you can see I'm holding them identically. There's this first phalange or knuckle here on the index finger is up there. My thumbs are resting here, so I'll just hold that for a minute so that you can look at it. These two fingers are eventually for you, they're going to be involved in controlling the stick and doing certain things, like when you're swinging, you know, on the cymbal. These are kind of helping you along at certain tempos. The bounce of the stick will be too. The pinky's just going along for the ride. If there's some pinky technique out there, I haven't heard about it, but that's it. And then look at here. See how the butt of the stick goes right into there? You don't really want any more because your wrist is going to be bending, and it just gives you a good place to hold it. And you know, you'll run into some things as you're really getting that grip just right. The stick sometimes wants to travel up. I used to find myself, you know, in the middle of songs and I was running out of stick here, and so easy enough to correct mid-song. Just be conscious of it, or while you're practicing or playing too. Okay, I'm going to talk about feet for a minute because even though you don't have a drum set yet, I'm going to want you to involve